Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today we're speaking with Prash, who's the founder, managing director of Caleb and Brown. How you going, Prash?
I'm well, Alex. How are you doing?
Very good, thanks, mate. So one thing we've been talking about on the channel and that people are hearing a lot and asking questions about is these OTC orders. So what happens behind the scenes when you hear about these whales or people buying very large amounts of crypto because it doesn't happen on the exchanges per se. So we're going to have a chat to you today about how this all works because you guys are at the coalface and doing this every day with your business.
Yeah, happy to talk you through it. Any specifics before I get on my soapbox?
Yeah, so I mean, I just want to highlight for people that on exchanges we see the buy and sell orders, and you're mainly getting a picture of the retail customer and what they're doing. And when you look at the charts and you see that volume, that's what's happening on the exchange for whatever chart you're looking at. So a lot of this stuff is happening in the background. So if I wanted to buy a large amount of crypto, and I contacted you guys, what's the process from there?
Sure. So you've touched on a little bit of that already. The exchanges are great because it gives you an idea of where the market sits as a general price point.
Yeah.
But again, there's a lot of trading that happens outside of the markets. Um, when you're buying small amounts, small volumes, that's something that the markets can support. But the moment you start to buy larger volumes, that's where you see single trades cause huge price fluctuations. This is something that the markets don't like, the exchanges don't like. We've seen in the past furores with certain exchanges where whales, as we use the term we use
Yeah.
for people with very large amounts who are able to cause such fluctuations in the market, they've either dumped large amounts in a single trade, and that's caused a huge price fluctuation. Now, that isn't great for the market, but it also isn't great for the individual. If you're trying to sell a large amount of crypto, for example, you're shooting yourself in the foot by trying to do that on an exchange where you would artificially dump the price of your own sell.
Yeah.
It's not really an intelligent way to go about things, which is where the OTC market exists or
Yeah.
why it exists.
So just to clear
Um,
that up even further for people that are just beginning, when you go to an exchange and you see the buy and the sell orders in an order book, if you want to buy, let's say $50,000 worth of a smallish coin like Power Ledger or sell it, when you click that buy at market price, it just picks up all those orders. Or if you sell, it'll just wipe out all those orders, and you might find that the price started at $1, but because there just wasn't much liquidity or depth, as we call it, your last few orders might have pushed it all the way down to 50 cents when you're selling. So you're not getting the best price. And it's the same on the flip side. If you want to buy large amounts of Bitcoin, you end up paying way more than the price that you see on Coin Market Cap or all those different exchanges. So,
Spot on. And to give you an example, you brought up Power Ledger as a smaller coin. So it's a good example. When we started this about 2 years ago, when we started the brokerage, so our minimum buy was $10,000. Now, someone trying to buy $10,000, I mean, now $10,000 for a Bitcoin is something people laugh at. But at that time, if you were trying to buy $10,000 of Bitcoin, you're getting quite a few Bitcoin for that
yeah,
amount.
yeah,
And if you were trying to put that $10,000 worth onto an exchange, as you tried to buy, your each dollar that you were putting in was getting more and more expensive. If that makes any sense.
yeah,
Um, Now that $10,000 figure is much less relevant in a way, mainly because people are essentially putting much more into the exchanges. The exchanges have a lot more depth in the order book, but that didn't used to be the case with Bitcoin before. That is the case though still with the smaller coins. So smaller coins, that's what we're going to call them, or the less established coins, coins which don't have as large a market capital, they still don't have the same kind of depth that Bitcoin has now achieved. That's not to say that in the future they're not going to achieve that same kind of market capital. But if you're trying to buy a more newly released coin, for example, um, and you're trying to buy large volumes of it on an exchange, it's going to be virtually impossible.
yeah. So that's for the smaller coins, I guess we've touched on then. But how does it work? I know a few people we've passed your way, and a lot of people in this space are hearing about these very large orders. So let's say if I want to buy $100 million of Bitcoin, you're starting to then match buyers and sellers in the background, and that price as such, what is the true price of Bitcoin? It all kind of gets
Mhm.
negotiated in that behind the scenes. Is that right? Or
Yeah, it does. So we almost think of our buys and sells in about three tiers. We have the general retail brokerage side, which where an average customer is coming in to buy at about $50,000, let's say.
Yeah.
And then we have the larger volumes where we're looking at the sort of $2 million to $20 million market. These could involve things like ICOs who are liquidating. It could be occasional institutional investors. And then we have the third subset altogether, which is what you're talking about, the true real OTC market, where the OTC market is absolutely imperative because you would not be able to get by on an exchange. Now, in this case, we're talking at numbers in the region of anywhere from $50 to $500 million. This is just, I'm talking, that's just two of the figures that we've been offered to us in the last week, let's say.
Yeah.
And it looks like quite a spread between 50 to 500, but it's all falling within the same realm of trades that could not possibly or feasibly get by on an exchange, that happen completely transparently. Think of an iceberg and what's above the water versus what's under the water.
Yeah.
That's a sort of a workable analogy. And that really is is a sample of the actual trading that's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah. And it is a case of trying to find someone that's selling, or a few sellers that are selling those hundreds of millions of dollars to match that one buyer that wants to buy $500 million. Is that how it works?
Or the other way around.
Bit of both.
You may have a seller with a block of $500 million worth, and we've got a bunch of different buyers looking for a 50, 100, 200 here and there, and we match them together, divide up the blocks, and try and match buyer and seller. This is, I wish, having just said that, I wish it was as simple a process as I just described.
Yes.
Sounds like buying Tic Tacs at the 7-Eleven, but unfortunately, it's a lot more complicated than that. Mainly, again, obviously, because of the size, the volumes that we're talking about. You're dealing with very wary investors. You're dealing with very intense KYC, or know your customer, and anti-money laundering requirements. You're mostly dealing with institutional investors whose level of expected rigor, and rightly so, is much higher than your usual retail investor. And you're also often dealing with multiple parties in the mix. There are very few individuals, let's say, with $500 million who are walking about trying to shop for a way to buy $500 million worth of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
If you've got that kind of money, you're not doing the runaround yourself.
No. So you guys have been around for 2 years. Have you seen the trends change? I assume 2 years ago people were only really interested in Bitcoin, but now Bitcoin and Ethereum would be by far the biggest, I take it, and you do all sorts of those smaller cap coins as well. And what sort of trends, or how have you seen the market change over the last couple of years?
Yeah, we do the entire range of. We'll allow our customers to buy or sell or diversify into absolutely anything that's in the market. If it's there, we'll help you access it.
Okay.
And so we do get a pretty good handle on exactly what the market's thinking, and which way they're looking to sort of invest. And there are two elements to this conversation, I guess. One big thing that we've seen, obviously, is the OTC market getting larger and larger and larger.
Yeah.
Part of that is also due to our reputation becoming more established in the industry, and therefore the larger OTC players are coming to us. But even aside from that, I think it's becoming relatively obvious to us that trades in the region of 100 to 500 and more $million are becoming more and more common. And this speaks to one thing, the fact that institutional investors are getting far more into the game than they ever were before. The irony in this whole situation is that the public voice from the institutional community hasn't really changed in that time. That sort of institutionalized criticism or skepticism, which we were seeing 2 years ago, and a year ago, and a month ago, and a week ago, and today, and tomorrow, and next year,
Yeah.
if I'm going to forecast it, if history is any prediction of the future, has remained constant, even as we have seen institutional investors and names which I don't have the benefit of disclosure, but who you would put in the category of people who have traditionally been quite vocal against cryptocurrencies,
Yeah.
But very much getting into the market.
So watch what they do, not what they say, as the saying
Exactly.
goes. Yeah.
Exactly. And unfortunately, not all of us are privy to what they do, as opposed to what they say. Not least because it's the media who report very much on what they say, and
Yeah.
there are particular number of stories that sell papers.
That's right. That's right. So, what about the old saying, buy low, sell high? In December, when everything was ramping up and it was, really smart people are starting to take some profits, do you notice
Hmm.
the average retail investor kind of doing the wrong thing at the wrong time? And again, at the bottom when prices are low, I know you guys were saying that, maybe you're personally buying a bit more and averaging prices or whatever, but do you notice the public do the opposite of that old saying, buy low, sell high?
the public, the public always do the opposite of that saying, and that's not a criticism. That's just because the public is the market.
Yes.
And so obviously that is the way it's going. That's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
When Bitcoin hit those all-time highs, and I know you keep using Bitcoin as the example, but it's the best barometer of the market in general.
Yeah.
When Bitcoin hit that all-time high, that figure, let's say roughly about 25,000 AUD.
Yeah.
Personally, do I think that's too high? I don't think so at all. I think that's a microcosm of what it's eventually going to be. However, the rate of change is what scared a lot of us in the industry, and definitely myself. It went up way too quickly, as opposed to the rate of change preceding that. And I think the general consensus within the community is that that price rise was being driven by speculative traders, not by true early adopters of the technology, not by true believers in the cause, but solely by people just looking to make a quick buck. And as a result, as the hype built and as the media caught on to the hype, you had naturally people getting into the market at all the wrong time.
Yeah, and we've just seen it time and time again. More people find out, we get ahead of ourselves, we have these big volatile pullbacks, and this cycle just continues to repeat as long as the user base and user adoption continues to grow.
Yes, and equally on the opposite end, when the market has reached a low, and we're calling it a low now. Let's not talk about today because we've had a pretty good couple of days. But if we take last week, for example, and everyone's talking about it as it's a low. It's not much different than it was in October.
Yes.
And these are the kind of things we forget. We with us in the crypto community, we live in a very sped up world. We live in a financial market that's on Dexies.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, less than 12 months ago, Bitcoin was $1,000, and it just feels like so long ago when you're living and breathing crypto. Yeah.
Yeah, so it hasn't been that long. But at that point, we had customers calling, we had clients calling in, all clients of ours going, what do you guys think? Where do you guys think the market's going? And we don't give individual financial advice. It's a legal line that we're still waiting for regulation to catch up with us on.
Yeah.
But we do talk to our customers about where the market's sitting and chart, and we get our analysts to talk to them about charts. Looking at where it was before versus where it's looking at now. And we had a lot of customers who were looking to wait till it started to rise again before buying. Not now, I'll let it go up a bit more, which for an investor, it makes you do a bit of a double take and go, sorry, what was that again? We're gonna wait for it to go up before we buy? But that's often the psychology of investing,
exactly.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Which is hard. It's hard to beat.
Yeah. Well, mate, it's been a fantastic chat. I think we'll wrap it up there. And any closing comments?
Well, I like to say that there are exciting times ahead. There are definitely exciting times ahead, regardless of which way this is going to go. And paramount for us, particularly here at Keelan Brown, paramount for us is to create a safe investing environment for the community. And if anything, get in get in whenever you want to get in, but make sure it's an informed choice. And please get in safely. The market is rife with nefarious means of getting into the market. And for us, it's a paramount concern that our clients and the community in general does this safely.
Yeah, and I do appreciate everything you guys do for the wider community, and obviously there is a discount for our community as well when they go through you guys to buy or sell. So thanks for chatting with us today, Prash, and we'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Cheers, Alex.
Cheers, mate.